Welcome to another installment of Friday Q&A. I hope you're all excellent. If you have questions for next week's Q&A, do not hesitate to put them in the comment section below. And if you want to support what I'm doing on the channel, you can pick up some of my band Ragdoll's music using the Bandcamp link in the video description. Alternatively, you can sign up to my Patreon where you can access exclusive video lessons, backing tracks, and transcriptions. Let's get into this week's questions. But first, I am playing my wonderful PRS McCarty from 2006. I've got some Fishman Fluence Classic pickups in them, into my Axe FX3 on the Messer Mark IV model, and it sounds like this. Glorious stuff. I'm using that trick where I'm using the pitch follower to blend in delay. So down here, there's no delay, but up here, there's plenty. So much fun. Alrighty, let's get into a few questions. I mentioned last week, I did 3 gigs last week, which is the busiest I've been in a very long time. How were the gigs? I did basically a kind of like R&B Friday style gig on the Thursday. That was pretty fun, and basically my wrist just does 16th notes and I play like 2 or 3 chords per song, so it's really fun. Get to play with a great band. I did a fill-in duo gig with my buddy Scott on Friday. That was like an afternoon acoustic thing where I just basically played electric guitar and made some kind of nice ethereal pads. That was awesome. And then on Saturday night I had a Ragdoll show, which was super fun to kind of bust it out and play again with the guys. So that was really, really cool. Drank a lot of lemonade. Had some food. It was actually a 50th birthday party, which is always a fun event. And yeah, got to play some music. What more can you ask for, especially at the moment? On that note as well, Ryan's bass rig. So Ryan, singer, bass player from Ragdoll, he's going to give you a very quick little rig rundown right now. What's your bass rig?
Tonight.
Rig rundown-ness.
Rigging rundown. I've got tuner, compressor.
And that's a compressor for
I'm going to
bass.
switch these off, they're easier to look at. Bass compressor, and then the ever trusty Sansa. I haven't actually done anything to that yet. It's too late to have a fiddle, isn't it?
No, you could do it.
Too
Just
late
do it in
to
your
fiddle
ears.
knobs.
Never too late to fiddle your knobs, mate.
Hey?
Knob.
Too late to fiddle, you know?
On that note, how on earth did we come up with the name Ragdoll? A lot of people assume, hey, you're a rock band. You probably named it after that Aerosmith song, right? And the number of times I've heard people at shows sing that song to us. If I had $1 for every time that happened, I'd probably have a few $100, put it that way. But it's got nothing to do with Aerosmith. If you know me, you know I love cats. Our drummer Cam loves cats as well, and he used to have a beautiful Ragdoll cat. And all the band names we had come up with up to that point kind of sucked. We were always like, it's not great. And then one day he just sort of said, hey, I think I've got it. Ragdoll, after the cat. You know, we're all kind of fluffy, hairy guys with our hair, and it just kind of stuck. It was the first name that we didn't hate, so we just ran with it. And I think a lot of band names are like that. When you're trying to find a band name, you're looking for something, you know, that's going to be super deep and meaningful, and it's going to just immediately jump out at you, you know, like the B Sharps or something like that. But yeah, it was basically the first name we didn't absolutely detest. And, you know, I mean, now I have Ragdoll stickers on all my gear, like on my PRS, which I'm sure is sacrilege to some people, but there it is. That's where the name came from. Sort of related to that, one of you mentioned that you would notice that we opened up for Skid Row. We did that in 2014 at the Whiskey in LA. That was an awesome night. Really, really cool. And we also opened for Sebastian Bach a few years later in Australia. Number one, on that note, what do I think of the Skid Row album Subhuman Race? That's probably the album that I can listen to now and enjoy the most, and it has my favorite Skid Row song on it, Into Another, you know, the one with the kind of 7/4 thing at the start. Really, really cool song. I think Sebastian's singing it's my favorite Sebastian vocal performance on a lot of those kind of songs. And they were probably the one like hair metal band who, and I say hair metal, they weren't really hair metal. They were just around in the late 80s and early 90s, but you know, they they managed to kind of flourish after grunge without just becoming like a pop country act or something like that. So kudos to them. That's a really, really solid album. Do I think they'll ever do a full-blown Skid Row reunion? I guess you kind of never say never, but the Skid Row guys, when we played with them and we met them, they just all seemed super happy with what they were doing at the time. So I don't know, maybe they'll do it. Maybe they won't. Maybe they're just getting on with their lives, making music and doing gigs and just kind of being people, not worrying about what the rest of us want. But it would be pretty cool to see. Sebastian's solo band is great as well. So it's kind of like best of both worlds, I guess. You get double the fun. Oh, this guitar is fun to play. On that topic of what do I reckon about stuff, I was asked about Prince. What do I reckon about Prince? Genius. Amazing. I only got into Prince after he'd passed away, though, and that is one of my kind of biggest regrets. I basically just wrote him off because I had heard, like Purple Rain on the radio, which is awesome, and I'd heard Kiss, and I was like, yeah, this guy's pretty good at what he does, but like, whatever. I hadn't heard a lot of his earlier stuff, which is like, what's the song? Wanna Be Your Lover? That's just an amazing groove and such a great song. And I wasn't really aware of his like prowess on so many instruments. I knew he was obviously a great pop songwriter because he had had so many big hits, but he came to Perth just doing a piano only show. And I knew a few people who went to that and they were like, man, it's like just one of the best things we've ever seen. I was like, oh yeah, whatever, Prince. And then he died a few months later. So let this be a lesson that I'm an idiot, and a lot of the time, these people who have a reputation for being amazing, it's probably for a reason, and it's worth digging below the surface into their back catalogue to check out some of what they've done. So, and obviously there's that While My Guitar Gently Weeps solo on the internet, which is amazing. But for me, the greatest Prince thing is his Super Bowl performance. That is how you do it, basically. That is how you just totally own the big stage. Go and watch that. Stop this video, go and watch his Super Bowl performance because it's amazing on so many levels. And his guitar playing on it is phenomenal too. So yeah, Prince, amazing. Will Ragdoll ever do any acoustic shows? We've actually done lots and lots of acoustic shows. The last acoustic show we did was in Melbourne right before the whole COVID lockdown, and we opened for Kip Winger. So that was really, really cool because Kip does his kind of solo acoustic thing, and his solo acoustic stuff is phenomenal. If you only think of Winger and you think of the song 17, go and check out Kip's solo stuff. It is so good, and a lot of the time it is not exactly what you would expect. So that was the last acoustic show that we did. I actually have an acoustic gig this Friday with Ryan in town, so that'll be good fun. And we filmed a bunch of acoustic stuff over on our YouTube channel, so you can go and check out us doing some acoustic versions of our original songs, and then there's some covers like Hot Blooded by Foreigner and Give Me All Your Love by Whitesnake. So if you want to hear Ryan sing some Whitesnake, go and do it. Again, you've come back to this video after watching Prince and you've been amazed. Press pause, go and check out Ryan do some Whitesnake and hear a great singer do their thing. All right. This Q&A is fun, but I haven't played a lot of guitar just yet, so I'll answer one more question and then noodle a bit more. This one comes from my buddy Shane about the new Adam Jones Les Paul. Those things look so tasty. And Shane, I know you've got an original Silverburst, so you're kind of sitting on a gold mine there. But, true to form, like, I guess anything Gibson these days. And credit to them in the fact that they're still kind of able to keep up the hype. Yeah, I saw those things, as you mentioned, going for like 20 grand plus or something like that, which is like obviously ridiculous. I would never pay that much for a guitar, but Adam seems like a super cool dude, and I'm just telling you to stop and go and watch things. Go and watch the video he did with that guitar because it's pretty cool. You know, he's somebody I think who approaches music as an art form and approaches the guitar as this way to get to doing art rather than as a means in itself. So yeah, I enjoyed that video. That was very, very cool. And Adam Jones was, involved in Jurassic Park. So he's in Tool. He was involved in Jurassic Park. What more could you ask for in a career? Why did I sell that purple Miasnikov preamp? Basically to make space in my rack. I sold it locally to someone who was super stoked to pick one up, so that's a win right there. And I basically wanted to make space for my ADAs because I want to mod one of them like I talked about last week and do the 3-tube mod. So, and just kind of wasn't getting played. I've already got the Soldano thing covered with my Hot Rod 50 Plus and all the other gear I have. So it just kind of felt right to move on the thing that I was playing the least. A compressor instead of a drive pedal as a boost. Let's do that. I'm on my Axe effects. This sounds awesome if you set it up right. So I'm going to turn the boost off on this, and I'm going to put in the Axe FX 3, I really like the JFET compressor. So the idea here would be basically you're using the compressor not only to kind of even out your playing dynamics, but to boost the front end of the amp. So I'm just going to crank this up. So this is without the boost, but with a compressor, smoothing everything a little bit, evening out my dynamics, and then giving the amp a big boost. This is great if you like to play legato, but you're not a great legato player like me. Something like that, but you can hear the character of the amp is still there. I was not pressing anywhere near as hard there. It means you can really back off on your attack, and it's a cool alternative. I actually used to have one of the Keeley 4-knob compressors on my board instead of a drive pedal, so yeah, I heartily endorse this. It's a really cool way. Or alternatively, you could use a graphic EQ pedal as a kind of EQ boost instead of a drive or a compressor. That's another great way to shape the sound of your amp. What's the worst thing that's ever happened in the tour van? This is a good one, and it made me think of quite a few things, and quite a few things that I'm not going to share on a public forum, but this is one of my favorite ones. It's still kind of gross, and chalk this one up to Ryan. This was our first ever American tour, and we basically went over to a friend's house for a barbecue. This was in Texas. They cooked what we call these dino steaks, the biggest steaks I've ever seen in my life. We had a barbecue and a pool party, and it was great. And when we left, I think we had to drive from Dallas like to Paris, Texas. We were staying with some friends in Paris, Texas, as you do when you're on tour. And they'd given us a bunch of watermelon to take with us. Like, hey guys, we've got all this spare watermelon. Take it with you in the little Ziploc bags. And we're driving, and it just basically very quickly became the middle of nowhere. And it was getting dark, and, Ryan had to relieve himself, and Cam's driving, and he was like, no, I don't want to stop. Like, we're making good time kind of thing. So, yeah, Ryan peed on the watermelon. And that's still one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life because, of course, as soon as he starts doing that, Cam starts, slamming on the brake and accelerating and slamming on the brake. And he should have just eaten the melon and then used the bag. But yeah, there's been a lot of that. Like, you don't want to stop the car, so you pee in something and maybe you forget about it. All the glamorous, glorious things about being on tour. One last question before we go. The solo on the Ragdoll song Save Me is the ending inspired by the 90s X-Men cartoon. I had to go and have a listen to this, and I can totally hear what you're talking about. So the solo ends with this little... And then listening to that, there's a very, very similar lick in there. And I definitely watched that cartoon as a kid a bunch. I really used to like it, and I've since gone back and watched a few little bits. And yeah, it was super cool anyway. So maybe it like subconsciously just embedded itself in my juvenile brain. And years later, when I was writing that solo, maybe I was just inspired by the X-Men. There's actually a lot of those things. I know, especially talking to Cam, our drummer, I'll write a particular part and he'll always have some kind of pop culture reference, like, that sounds like a Michael Jackson song, or that sounds like an X-Men cartoon or something like that. So, yeah, I think these things are inevitable when we're all cooking with the same ingredients. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching this week's Q&A. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. If you have any questions for next week, get them in the comments. Again, there's links to the Bandcamp and the Patreon page in the video description. I'll play you out on some stuff. Stay safe. Be good to one another. I'll see you very soon.